In this video, we're going to cover some of the vehicle designs, as well as some of the physics of a vehicle, from H1Z1, Sony Online Entertainment's new zombie survival game. Hope you enjoy.
So this is what we call the dynamic system tool. It's one of the primary interfaces that I have to the components which make up the dynamic system of the vehicles. What we see here is the actual collision mesh that the physics is considering when the vehicle's driving around. The other pane that the tool supports is basically all the subcomponents for the engine, the wheels, the tires, the suspension, the dynamic system as a whole, sort of the sum of all the pieces where they come together. There's a lot of parameters.
You can basically set like every single physics object that a car can do, right? Like you can like set spring rates, tires, shocks.
There's all the sort of nuts and bolts, weights and measures, things that you'd expect. As far as each piece that moves has a mass, a moment of inertia, how it's connected as far as the suspension, the spring rates, the dampeners, the shocks, and that sort of thing.
Was this how we made our vehicles on PlanetSide 2?
It's fundamentally the same tool set, and the bulk of the code is the same. And the idea is that it's a fairly generic, open vehicle simulation. So we can do, like in PlanetSide, tanks with 16 wheels, or the off-road.
Oh, don't say that. Now they're going to go over to PlanetSide dev team and be like, they said we could have tanks with 16 wheels.
The Vanguard has 16 wheels.
Oh, there you go. Well, it's just on a tread.
It's done. Right. Ship it.
Ship it.
So, you set up all the physics parameters as far as what you want it to do in the simulation, and then there's another layer of how the controller input's considered, other forces that are applied to make it behave the way people expect. So when everything's working well, you have a low level that's actually fairly accurately simulated as far as the physics, and then you have gameplay layers on top of that that make it more approachable and stuff, so that it behaves the way
kind
people
of
expect.
on the shift key when you're driving the
but it looks like my build's not.
the off-roader around.
You broke it, man.
One of the things that we had from PlanetSide that I'm working on getting working for us is in-air controls. So when you go off a ramp,
You have attitude adjustment and stuff, so you can sort of correct. And
what we're looking at right here is one of our test zones.
it's a big, wide open space.
Near the origin of the level, we have these ramps and stuff that are good for testing stuff. But the rest of the zone is just a completely flat surface, which is great for profiling speed and acceleration and that sort of thing. One of the overlays that we can get is a whole bunch of textual information that gives me frame-by-frame information about what the simulation is doing, what the inputs are doing, that sort of thing. So in this specific case where I'm working on the in-air controls, once it gets airborne, we have thruster information, and I can see specifically how much is getting applied on each axis and stuff. And switching back over to our design tool, basically when it's in the air, I have yaw, pitch, and roll control, and I can adjust the thrusters and set that sort of thing up. And then iterate back and forth and try and get it so it feels good. It gives you the ability to correct when you're not going to land flat. But also trying to balance it so it's not just wacky and
yeah, that's cool.
super
So you're
silly.
trying to make it feel like not arcadey, but it actually feels good. And
Right.
That's hard to do too because what it should do is it should just go head over and just land into the ground and explode.
Right.
But you can't have it be too realistic, otherwise no one will ever be able to drive any of these things.
Yeah, and if you watch people when they're playing, a lot of the time, even before we hook this up, players try and use English.
Yeah.
They move the camera, they move their head, and stuff like that. And so we're sort of just piggybacking on stuff that people tend to do naturally, and if it's a subtle effect, it could be really good.
That's cool.
So one of the other things, recently we had some new weapon types and stuff put in. So basically I'm going through and making sure that for everything that the player can have equipped, as far as their weapons and stuff, that when they go and they accost the vehicle, it does the proper amount of damage, or not, depending on the vehicle type. And there's lots of cool debug commands, but one of the things that helps a lot for this is debug damage. Once you enter that command, anything that you do
to the vehicle shows output about how much the raw damage was, how much gets filtered out, and we have fairly fine-grained control over what we call resist information filters that go through and make it so that if you shoot a thing, it takes a certain percentage off. If it goes over a threshold, it's a slightly complicated formula, but we can work it out. So the worst case is every time something gets introduced that's brand new, there's no filter at all. You'll walk up to the off-roader and you'll hit it with a flare, and it suddenly explodes
Catches on
because it
fire.
takes 100% of the damage.
Nice.
So every time we put new stuff in, part of my role is to go through and make sure that everything's, we're covering all our bases.
Awesome.
Stuff, so.
Well, we'll leave you alone. Thanks for showing us the vehicle
No problem.
and what you do.